How's it going, everyone? Yosef back here with another video, and hope you're having an amazing week so far. Today we have, well, there's no other way of saying it, something completely insane. And I am so excited to show it to you guys. But before we get into that, if you're new to the channel, my name is Yosef. I happen to be a car enthusiast with 3 kids, and I used to sell cars in the past. So if you're interested in my perspective, please subscribe. All right, now on with the video. All right, so for today's video, we are going to answer an important question, and that is, what do you buy if you have $200,000 or $250,000 to spend and you want something completely insane, something radical that nobody has, something that's going to make you stand out more than anything, but you also want to have a vehicle that will help you if there's a zombie apocalypse or if you get recruited for the next Mad Max movie? Well, today, I think I have the answer for you, and that is the 2021 Jeep Gladiator that's been heavily modified by a company called Apocalypse. I have never seen anything quite like this ever, and I think this is the only one in Canada. And it's crazy, if you look at it, it's just a monster. It looks to me like if you would have taken a Jeep Gladiator, pumped it up with steroids, and let it loose with one of the Mad Max vehicles and one of the aliens from Independence Day. I mean, just look at it, it's totally crazy. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about this company Apocalypse, because it's just an amazing thing. So what they do is they take a standard Jeep Gladiator, or you can do this with almost anything. They have F-150 Raptors that they'll take. You can do this with your Rivian R1S, and they have set production options that you can choose from. So you select the body style that you want. This one happens to be the Hellfire. You can also choose different engines, and that allows you to create this enormous, totally crazy vehicle. This one in particular happens to have a 3-liter V6 Eco diesel engine, and it produces about 260 horsepower and about 460 pound-feet of torque. It's a monster. It can go off-road. It's got this crazy lift kit and suspension, and it even has this crazy paint job made out of Kevlar, and it just looks ridiculous. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the styling and all the features about it. We're gonna go for a drive, and I can guarantee you nothing else on the road is gonna get quite as much attention as this thing when we take it out. So let's take a look at the styling of this thing, because it's totally outrageous. And if you take a look at the front grille here, it looks like something that came out of a Mad Max video. You've got this crazy Apocalypse logo over there. You've got this enormous, very chunky winch. You've got these little LED lights here, and you even have a light bar at the top that looks crazy. There's this huge hood scoop or bulge in the engine bay here that just adds a lot of aggressiveness, and it's completely open at the bottom. I can only imagine what it's like going off-roading in this thing. Let's take a look at the side profile of this thing, because it is totally crazy. You've got 40-inch tires over here. You've got insane Fox shocks, and you've got Apocalypse 6x6 listed everywhere. And that is one of the party pieces of this giant thing. It's got 6-wheel drive. How many cars on the road offer you 6-wheel drive? Honestly, I can only imagine that Hennessy has a couple options that they have with their Raptors, and I know Mercedes has the G-Wagon 6x6, but other than that, there really is not much out on the road that has presence like this with 6-wheel drive. So if you've got a 4x4 and you're trying to boast and show how cool you are, Man, this thing takes it to the next level. But if you take a look at the side profile, it's really crazy because this section over here is literally just straight out of a Jeep Gladiator. But what you'll notice is because it's raised so much, you've got this running board on the bottom that extends electronically when you open the door so that you can get in a little more simply. Otherwise, it would be a pretty big jump to get up there. And as we move a little further back, this is where things get really crazy because you've got this extended fender that is enormous just so that it can house these two wheels back here. And you've got Hellfire listed over there, which just looks so cool. And you can see the suspension work behind, which also just adds to the excitement of looking at this vehicle. And when you take a look at it from the back end, it kind of reminds me of the Cybertruck, that it slopes down like this for the cab that it's got on the back. And you've got this crazy tonneau cover that's covering the entire back area of the cab. So of course, you don't have a rear window. And you're probably wondering, well, how do you see out of the back of this, Joseph? And the answer to that is through two camera systems. You've got one back here, which gives you your rearward camera when you're backing up, but you also have a camera mounted up at the top that acts as your rear view mirror. And that way you don't have to worry about not seeing out of the back because you've got a camera feed coming in there, which is really cool. And I love the way you've got this Apocalypse sort of script lifted back here. It just looks so cool. And you've got these massive tailpipes that stick out so far. It reminds me of a crazy American muscle car from back in the 60s. But overall, this thing has so much presence and it's so cool to look at. But I'm sure you want to see the inside. So let's go check it out. Okay, so getting into this Hellfire Apocalypse, you open the front door and what you notice is you're greeted with very much a Jeep Gladiator door panel. Everything looks and feels very similar to a Jeep Gladiator, very sort of rubbery, soft materials, but everything is designed to be extremely durable. And one thing that you'll notice is you've got the lock and unlock button here for the doors and you've got the mirror adjustments, but you have no window controls, which is odd because, well, these doors can come off. So that's interesting, but where are the window buttons? I'm going to show you those in a moment, but taking a look at the interior of the Apocalypse Hellfire, you've got this custom interior that they do for you, which is really cool. You've got some very nice red and black contours and contrast stitching and quilting, and it just looks very cool. It's so much more unique and interesting than a typical Jeep Gladiator. And moving to the inside of the Apocalypse Hellfire, you'll notice that everything is very familiar here from a Jeep Gladiator. The steering wheel feels exactly the same. You've got the same buttons. The only real difference is you've got this really cool Apocalypse logo in red and black embroidered on the horn button. But other than that, taking a look at the gauge cluster really quickly, you don't have a whole lot of exciting stuff to take a look at over here. Because this is a 2021 model, it's a little bit older. It's not the new updated infotainment system and center display that you would get with some of the newer Jeep models, but you do have digital gauge cluster over there, which is somewhat configurable for the middle section. Not a whole lot that you can do there. And the infotainment system is very simple as well. Not a whole lot you can do here. You've got a few shortcuts for media, for some of the apps that you can play around with, and of course the climate controls, but a very, very simple infotainment system. It is a bit laggy. It's not super intuitive to use. And I would imagine that people using this are probably not going to be buying it for the technology. They're buying this thing for the way that it looks and drives and the feel that it gives you going around with it. But it is nice that at least we do have an infotainment system, and the climate controls are really easy to use, and you've got a lot of the physical buttons for it over here, which is nice. So we don't have to worry about going deep into menus to be able to get into all this stuff. And everything is very rubberized and durable. This thing is designed to take a beating and to go off-road, and so you can hose it down afterwards and not have to worry about it. But I did mention before that we don't have the window buttons on the door, which is an odd thing. If we take a look down here, you'll notice you've got the window buttons in the center console. And that is an interesting decision because, well, when you take the doors off, or you can take the doors off, so when you do, you obviously don't have to worry about having the window buttons going along with the doors. But then why do you need the window buttons here? The doors are off, which go with the windows. So some very interesting things. I think they did it just to simplify so you don't have as many connectors to take off when you take off the doors. But I can only imagine what it's like driving this thing with the doors off. That would be totally crazy. But everything looks very similar here for what you'd be used to from a Jeep Gladiator or any other Jeep product. You've got a lot of great off-road capability here as well. Because the Jeeps are generally very good off-road, you've got all these really cool buttons down here for the winch and for the extra light, the LED bar that we've got on the top. And you've got another little shift lever here for your all-wheel drive system. So if you want to shift from 4 high to 6 high or 6 low, you've got the ability to do that. And you've got a manual handbrake, which is really cool, and a couple cup holders. But other than that, nothing too exciting in this area. And when we take a look a little further up, you'll notice that you've got this really cool chunky grab handle that is really solid. I mean, they designed that thing very well. So if you are coming in here and going off-road, you've got something great to hang on to. And you've got these giant grab handles on the side as well, which look really, really cool. One other thing to note that's really unique for the Hellfire Apocalypse is the rear view mirror. Right now you see it as a traditional typical mirror, but if I turn the car on, it turns into our camera system. So that is our rear window. We don't have a rear window, of course, so we have to use that camera system to be able to look out the back. And if we take a look up a little bit more, you'll notice that you've got some quilting up on the ceiling, which is unique to the Hellfire Apocalypse. That looks really cool, but otherwise these panels can actually come out, which is very interesting. So if you're going off-roading and you want to have a convertible look and feel and experience, you have the ability to take off those roof panels, which is really awesome. Now moving to the back of the Hellfire Apocalypse, you'll notice you've got a very simple, similar door card as what we had in the front. Nice soft materials back here still, but again, no buttons at all when it comes to the windows or any real storage along here, which is kind of unfortunate. But if we take a look at the interior back here, you'll notice that we've got the same nice stitching and red and black leather that we had in the front, which looks great. It really adds to the excitement back here. And you also have some cup holders and you've got some air vents in the back. And you'll notice that the window switches are located over here as well. So again, odd placement having them here. And I guess because we can take off the doors, we want to have a little bit less to take off if we ever do that. But the one thing that I find really cool back here is I love the fact that you've got that quilting on the ceiling. It just looks so cool. And it adds to the vibe of this crazy custom truck that nobody else has. One other interesting thing to note is because the roof panels are removable and the door panels are removable, they had to put the speakers up here so that they stay fixed in the vehicle when you take everything off, which is very cool. So you have that crossbar that stays fixed when you take everything off. And again, you've got your speakers in there, which just look very cool. Moving to the cargo area of the Apocalypse, we've got a latch here that we can pull down and we open up the tailgate. It's not power operated, but it is damped, which is great. And you've got this massive bed back here, which you would expect from a Jeep Gladiator. This one is extended, of course, beyond belief because it's a 6x6. And you've got this really cool tonneau cover over here, which can roll up. But other than that, nothing really exciting to talk about back here. I'm sure you are really curious, as am I, about how this thing drives. So let's get on the road and see how it drives. Okay, let's go for our drive. Now, the big important thing that you have to remember is this is unlike anything else on the road. So the driving experience is going to be very unique, and it's not going to be like a normal truck. It's not going to be like a Jeep Gladiator. It's not sporty. It's in a league of its own. So I'm going to talk about that and just keep that in mind as we go for our drive and I explain it. But getting in here, first of all, it's enormous. So just getting up into the vehicle is crazy. You feel like you're stepping up into, again, it could be like a commercial grade truck or a bus or something like that. The view that you get out, just looking out in front of you, is crazy because you're sitting so high up and you've got these crazy pillars from the modifications that this thing has. And the visibility is really poor. I mean, a Jeep Gladiator in general is not great in terms of visibility, but this thing is extra poor just because you've got no rear window, which is crazy to think about. Just getting in here and driving in normal traffic seems so crazy because you've got the biggest thing on the road. I mean, buses and trucks look tiny compared to this. Even driving the Cybertruck, when I drove that, it felt enormous, but you know, this thing really, it makes that thing look like a Matchbox toy. It's so crazy. But so how does it actually feel when you're driving this thing? Well, you have to be very conscious of the fact that it is enormous and you've got these crazy big wheels behind you, and it's quite large. So there's that. But the handling and the feeling of this thing it really feels like driving a truck. I mean, if you ever rented a 26-foot U-Haul truck, it kind of gives you that sort of experience. It is very long, it's a diesel engine, so you don't get a lot of power when you put your foot down, but there is a lot of torque. You hear that diesel sound, and the throttle response is not great. The brake pedal is incredibly soft. It's like putting your foot down on a pillow, so you don't really get a whole lot of feel from the brake pedal, and the steering is, well, incredibly vague. When you have enormous tires like this, you don't really get a sense of where the front wheels are. They just kind of move with the flow. So it is a little interesting when you're driving in traffic, keeping it straight, and there's a little bit of play. But otherwise, I mean, it just is so cool. I don't think there's anything else that you can buy that has this much presence and makes you feel so commanding of the road. And people are afraid of it. They literally will get out of your way because it's so big and they're afraid of you knocking into them. But it also grabs so much attention. You know, I was kind of joking about it before, but you know, you could buy a Lamborghini for this price. You can buy a Huracan, you can buy a Cybertruck, you can buy a G-Wagon. There's so many vehicles that you can buy for this price point, and nothing, I almost guarantee you that nothing will turn heads quite like this thing. So if you are somebody that wants to grab attention, look no further. And other than that, it's a very normal Jeep Gladiator driving experience. I mean, the infotainment system and everything that you interact with is very much Jeep, so nothing too exciting there. But I think the big point just to think about is, you know, being in a 6-wheel drive monster truck that looked like it came out of Mad Max. And that's exactly what it is. It is really nice that we have this mirror sort of video feed here because it allows you to see out of the back. Otherwise you'd have zero visibility there, and having this huge hood bulge on the front just looks really crazy. It's just an amazing experience. There's nothing else to say about it. And if you're interested in this particular Apocalypse Hellfire, the crazy thing is the owner of this vehicle is actually selling it. KM Capital is the company that lent me this vehicle, and they're the same folks that lent me the Cybertruck, and I am so gracious that they've given us the opportunity to take this thing out on the road and do a proper review of it. And the same thing with the Cybertrucks. They also help small businesses out with their finances, so if you're a small business looking for a loan or things like that, definitely reach out to the folks at KM Capital. They are awesome people and are great to help out. But let's go for our little drive. I'm going to shut up now just so you can see what it's like driving this thing and all the attention that it commands. How's it going? What's that? It's a special company that takes these Gladiators and does all the modifications. It's called Apocalypse. It's a Hellfire. It's about 200, 250. It's crazy, huh? You want to switch? Thank you, I appreciate it. I love your R8. It's beautiful. It's very nice. All right, well, that sort of wraps up our experience with the Apocalypse Hellfire. This thing is a monster and it's crazy to drive around. The attention it gets and the experience of going around in this thing and just experiencing it. I mean, it drives pretty well, I would say, for something that's got 6-wheel drive and is jacked up and is really high up, but it is just wild. So anyways, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the video. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the folks at KM Capital and for all of you who have been interested in watching this crazy thing get down on the road. So I hope you all have an amazing rest of the week, and I'll catch you all in the next video.